Hi, this is Angela, and I'm starting a video blog about dance and love and life. And the topics that I'm looking at are looking to how are we going to move through these times. So some of us are not so optimistic about the current state of affairs. So I'd like to give a different point of view on how we can come together as a species. And today I'm looking at the collective consciousness that we create through transformation of our heart. So transformation of the heart is something that we've had a lot of spiritual teachers teaching about for thousands of years. And one of the gifts given to us by the Buddhic traditions is the lotus flower. So my logo for Dance with Angela is that lotus flower. And it's a symbol in dance that we use as well. And it's a mudra that's used in not just India, but other dance forms, where we look at the flowering of the heart through a connection to a flower, a lotus flower. And the lotus flower was also symbolic of the heart flowering. And the heart flowering is not something that you can force. If you look at nature, flowers grow at certain times of the plant's life sequence. You don't get flowers every time throughout the year unless you're going through climate changes and you get different rates of the flowers coming in. But for a plant to flower, it has to go through a growth stage. So a lotus flower symbolically was also grown out of a muddy water. So that's where we are right now in our society. We're moving through a lot of the mud. But it's also our perception about it. It's our perception of the situations. It's a very stark reality for some people experiencing the consequence of war or poverty or food shortage or other situations. But for others who are not in those dire experiences, you might be feeling a psychological mud, being stuck in the mud. And the symbol of the heart flowering is that feeling of what happens when you look at the situation in a different way. And it's not intellectual. And this is the most important teachings from all of the teachers, from the Christ, from Buddha, from all of the spiritual teachers about consciousness and where are we going as a species to go to a higher consciousness. It's how we perceive our humanity. So in the end, it's how we judge ourselves that creates the mud. And so a lot of us are perhaps very negative about the current state of our species. And that's what we're having to see. We have to see the mud. We have to see the murky stuff so that we can begin to choose a different perspective, or we can begin to heal some of the uncomfortable stuff that perhaps is under the surface that may be giving us a lot of fertile nutrients or doo-doo to feed the flowering of our new consciousness. So the symbol of the flowering of the heart is extraordinarily profound when we start to go into it. Some people, like the Rosicrucians, would simply study the rose because the rose itself had thorns. And it was from understanding that with every rose comes some thorns that you understand you have to deal with discomfort or things that might be shocking or surprising or unexpected, because when you touch a rose, you might touch the thorn and you weren't prepared for that. You had a different perception. But in order to have the flowering of the rose of the heart, the Rosicrucians were asking us to really explore what was our nature and to experience all of the aspects of the development of the rose, not just the flower itself. So not everything comes smelling up roses. We have a lot of these phrases in our culture about the flower. So I wanted to touch base on transformation of the heart and how at this time it's not just our individual heart that's been asked to flower. I've been working with transformed relationships since 2016 because I was guided to do so. And I worked a lot on healing relationships because when we have a blockage in our relationship with others, there's something in your heart that's blocked. So you might be whinging about somebody else. Whinging is what we do in Australia, how we call it, or gossiping, bitching, complaining, but whinging's a really easy one here. And actually inside is a hurt that you had either with that person or from some other person in your life from the past, and you're now projecting it on somebody else. So relationships are a reflection and a great way to learn. And that was what I was doing from 2016. But now it's our species that we're sort of disappointed in. It's our humanity that we're sort of like, complaining about and not impressed by, and whinging. A lot of whinging collectively is happening. And that brought me to see that it's not about my heart or your heart or only healing our relationships with, say, one person, but actually transforming our perception of our collective consciousness and our species potential to have an expanded heart for each other. So when we look at collective consciousness, there's often this negative connotation to it, like it's weighing me down. A lot of empaths have a good whinge about the negative aspect, but the collective conscious also has this higher human potential aspect. And that comes from our perception of a collective heart or collective potential of the species to come together as one. And this is embedded in our species, but it's not necessarily practice. It's what I do when I come to a dance workshop. We all work with the heart energy. We all experience it. It can be as simple as when you're holding hands in a circle in the group and you start to transmit through the hand to the person next to you, to transmit that energy through your hand chakra that's connected to our heart chakra into the person next to you, and then send that around the group. It's a very simple qigong exercise. It's done for thousands of years. But when you do it, the simplicity of it is very enormous, and it creates a sharing of the collective heart energies of that circle. It's what we do in all circle dancing throughout many countries. And maybe you're not touching the hands, but you're sharing through your heart chakra, reaching out into the hands as a group, into that collective space. So transformation in a group can be enormous when we start to feel the group energy of the hearts being together. And this is what I'm seeing as the potential for the collective transformation of our species. There is this next level of consciousness waiting to be experienced on the planet when we stop whinging and we start feeling what's actually here now. Now we're not so seduced by some of the material aspects of our society because they haven't given us happiness. When you get to the point where you're in a society that's awake to the knowing, it's not just a concept, but a knowing that the material aspects are not giving you happiness. That's an enormous, dirty, muddy experience for the flower to grow out of, for the heart to flower and realize I need to connect to people, to a sense of something that's meaningful, to a sense of being together with people where I can share something that's not just about a physical state of transactional relationships to a state where we can actually feel that there's something wonderful to be experienced in our lives versus perhaps the not so great things that we're seeing in the media, or the disappointment we might have with the government, or with the way the pandemic was handled, or with the climate change, or with whatever fill in the blank that you're concerned about. From that discontent, coming together in groups has been a way that societies for thousands of years through dance used to shift beyond their collective muddiness. You would always have problems in tribal society, and one thing they basically did was come together and celebrate. And very quickly, magically, their consciousness would shift. Some of them did this as a regular practice, so they didn't get stuck in the negative aspects or the muddy hurts of their consciousness. They were able to shift vibrantly, fluidly, fairly quickly. And if there was something unresolved, they would have had practices and healing to do that. Right now, because of the way our societies are structured, we've become more isolated and we become more stuck in the negativity. And that was very useful, I know, from 2012 to now, to look at, say, unhealed hurts. Now there's this different consciousness moving forward into the Aquarian energy that's coming into the planet. It's actually, what is our species' aspiration as a collective? What is our heart wanting to experience moving forward as a species? We want to share resources. We want more, not equality of just by identity. We want true equality where people are able to live without poverty. We want that for people, because a part of us now is aware that resources can be made available when the right solutions are put into practice. And the dysfunctionality of our societies is being really revealed to us. So we know that things need to change. We just are very negative in the potential for it to change. So the transformation that our collective heart has an opportunity to move through is the perception that we can not just change, but it's actually celebrating that we're at this new level where we want it for all of us. We want resources to be managed in a way that everybody has access to shelter, to love, to food, to good health. We want that. It's that collective desire that I'm beginning to feel is being more and more expressed. And even members of our governments are saying things that I haven't heard previously as well. There's a lot in our collective awakening of the heart that's ready to be pulled in if we choose to focus on that. So if we can look at the final piece I wanted to share, was how the heart is, as a chakra, the middle chakra in all of the part of our body. And in each of us, that heart right now is being asked to really monitor what's dysfunctional, what's underneath that heart chakra that's not working, whether it's your physical body, your health, your physical health, whether it's also your way of making money and being fulfilled financially because of the lack of resources and the increase in prices. We're being challenged physically, a lot of us, to really see what's not working, which can be looked at through a negative lens, or from the heart point of view, it can be looked at from the point of view of, oh my God, I need to do something about this. What can be a heartful way to address this rather than a whinging way to look at it? And also from the heart point of view, where do you need help? How do you get it? where do you start to look for others to support you? Because the old way of doing things is to struggle and to be isolated. And we've come out of that pandemic knowing that that creates more problems, the isolation. And the heart, being in the middle of the 7 chakras, also has the higher chakras, which are also being asked to be integrated into our lower body, and to start to look at, if I'm going to balance my spiritual needs and my material needs, what is it that I need to pull in more from my higher mind or my higher perception to look at this situation differently, to stop whinging, to stop perhaps attacking other people, to start looking at a way to come into togetherness with others. So the higher mind is really necessary at this time if we're going to make it as a species. And the heart, going back to that flowering of the heart, is one of the major teachings of the Christ consciousness, which came through Jesus. It's also a major teaching through some other teachers that have been working with Jesus and other ascended masters to help people to understand that through connecting to the heart, we can start to balance these spiritual needs and the material needs. But it's only through actually understanding where we are now, through looking at our physical needs that are not being met, that we can start to manage those needs. It's not by running away, by addiction, and by the other things that we tend to do because of our modern culture and because of our conditioning. So if any of those things start to resonate with you and you'd like to explore more around the flowering of the heart, I've got some more things to share about that. I'm going to do videos about the central channel of the chakras and how that heart, being that center channel, is a way to transform the way we perceive ourselves in relationship to others. It is also about changing the way you look at yourself. But right now, I'm going to focus on social relationships in our society, because there is this movement happening where we are not able to see the potential of the human species. And there is enormous potential for us. It's just that the negative media is a lot more better at clickbait than the positive aspect. So if there's something you want to explore around the heart, the flowering of the heart, please let me know, put a comment. And I'm going to be sharing these video blogs on Mondays. I'm not sure of the time yet, but I'm also just looking at how to spread the news about the transformation of our heart and how we can look at using the heart as our guiding source as we move forward. It will be connected to the chakras and energy work. And I also look at how do we understand the kundalini through dance, not through just meditative practices. So I use dance and understanding the way how we move energy through our upper body and our lower body, with the heart being that beautiful medium in between our upper body and the lower body, and also how that relates to our physical world and our spiritual aspirations. So thank you for joining, and I look forward to hearing any of your comments. And until next Monday, stop whinging and start experiencing that beauty of your existence, what is opening up inside of you, even if it's muddy, even if it's uncomfortable, because there is something there for you to see in order to find that next level of awareness, so you can open up to more of what you're experiencing. Thanks so much for joining.